All right. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
My name's Dan Rainey, and that's Andy Brush. Andy's with Washtenaw County, and I'm with the City of Ann Arbor. And we're here today to talk about our success story around IT service sharing, IT shared services, but also, of course, our shared on-base environment. So first, we're going to talk about sort of what we were, and then we'll get to sort of how we got to what we are today and share with you our experiences and around our success and around our lessons learned too. And we'll talk about business cases, which is a key ingredient we found to making this relationship a success, how we get to achieve success, general agreements that we have for operating between us and the future.
So to start the story, we like to look back at kind of before our major collaborations started. So in 2007, Washtenaw County IT was a fine IT organization. We were doing very well on our own. We had already won a couple of CIO 100 awards. We had Digital Counties awards. We were doing a great job working with our local units, cities, villages, and townships. We were hosting about 20 government websites, 20 government email not accounts, but hosting email for about 20 of the cities, villages, and townships. So things were going along actually pretty well for us. We knew that City of Ann Arbor was literally a block away. Actually, our data center was a block away. We were in the middle, and then the City of Ann Arbor was another block over. So we were all nearby, and we knew that each other were around. We talked a little bit, but we hadn't really kicked off any kind of major collaboration together.
The City of Ann Arbor was in the middle of a 3-year strategic plan. I had been with the city for about 2 years at that point, coming after 15 years in the private sector. And we were just like head down, getting our technology upgraded to try to really catch up to where Washtenaw County was. At the time, by then I had met the CIO for Washtenaw County, and that's David B. And David, I don't know if you know, he's the CIO for the state now. But David and I had started a relationship where we started just talking about, well, gee, we're a block away, but we sort of met and talked about the common problems that we have, but never really talked about anything more than that. So we were very focused internally. There's a third party in our relationship, the Ann Arbor Transit Authority, and they're an authority that the city funds primarily through a millage, but they are also part of our IT shared services family. And they had just gotten a new CEO in 2007 and a new IT director shortly thereafter. We had started talking briefly about some of the common infrastructure that we shared, but we never talked about sharing anything more than that. So basically everybody was focused on their own stuff. The world was still pretty good in 2007 as far as public sector dollars went, and taxes were still okay, and everybody was sort of still fat, dumb, and happy, I think.
Well, I think one of the interesting things I think about when we talk about this is that I often think that county to county, city to city, road commission to road commission, that's where all the collaborations will lie. And we did this talk last week before at the Merit Conference, and it sort of struck me as like, wait a minute, we've got a city, a county, and a bus system that are collaborating kind of at this core infrastructure level. And it sort of made me step back and sort of reconsider how you do this, because you can do it at a application level where we say we're in the same business, or you can do it at an infrastructure level, which is sort of like we need the same building blocks, and then we can actually go different directions with the same blocks. So our biggest issue at the time, before we hooked up with the city, was that our data center was in a 100-year-old converted former post office. So in the basement, it would flood every once in a while, and usually it would flood. It was sort of like shooting ourselves in the foot. Somebody would leave a water spigot open, and it would run down the side of the building, and it would flood. So besides that, it was just a bad place for a data center. We were outgrowing it, and we knew that we needed to do either a major renovation there, build something somewhere else, or rent one. So that was sort of our biggest kind of infrastructure issue, was we needed to move somewhere.
So Jan Hallberg is the IT director with the AATA. I don't know if you've had a chance to meet her yet, but her biggest problem, she was still pretty new, was that her ISP was basically going out of business, and a lot of their critical hardware was actually co-located with that ISP. In fact, that ISP was being evicted, and her hardware was laying on the street when she called me up and said, we need, well, we'll get to that, but essentially her biggest problem, and she needed that hardware because the bus system has an online scheduling component that relies on the internet actually operating the buses, talking through a radio system to that server, and with it sitting on the street unplugged, it wasn't working. And so they were in some serious trouble. In the city of Ann Arbor, like I said, we had kind of made our way through most of our IT strategic plan, but the big nut yet to crack was the enterprise content management system. We were looking at, trying to put together an RFP and going out to bid, figuring out what our requirements were. Heck, I think at that time I was still trying to understand what ECM really meant. Was it imaging or was it something different than that? Was it records management? Was it all those things? And how are we going to swallow all that big of a process internally as an organization? Yet alone write a good RFP to cover all the things that we didn't know we would need in 3 years. So that's where kind of we were.
So we, in late 2007, we made the decision to merge our data centers. And it was some research. We had figured out it would cost us probably upwards of $1 million to go build something or renovate or do something like that. And the city of Ann Arbor had a data center. They had room, they had rack space, or at least they could rearrange things and fit us in. It turned out we could have come up with a lot of reasons not to, because we knew that the city was also going to build right next to where this data center was, a new building, and inside of that was going to be the data center. So we were going to have to move data centers twice. And I think David Bean recognized that you just got to do it, because one of the things about merging and doing something is actually the motion, and the political will was more difficult to come by than actually all the practicalities. So we just, I think it was in the fall, we turned everything off on a Saturday and wheeled, I think it was two successive Saturdays where we wheeled things. Some of them were carried up and down the block. We put the sand in the back of a truck and drove it over and plugged it in. So that was our big bang. And it worked because we had previously sort of merged our network. So we had actually already had a combined data center. They were just connected by wire under the street.
And what we had actually done before then is we took the jump into our shared ECM platform. Before we integrated the data center, we were actually operating our on-base out of Washtenaw County. And that came about through a conversation with Mike Leadline. You guys know Mike? Yep. So he came to talk to me about, he was pitching on-base as a solution to our ECM needs. And I said, that's all fine. I understand how it fits in the public sector and mid-sized enterprise. It's a pretty common choice across the public sector because of the integrations with the Esri and some of the Lawson, different providers out of the box. But I said, my problem is I have to do an RFP, I have to do requirements gathering, I probably got to hire a consultant to help me. It's going to be 18 months down the road, and I don't know, let's spend $100 grand putting the thing together before I can make a decision. I said, unless maybe you guys are willing to partner with us and work with Washtenaw County, let us work with Washtenaw County. And so we approached Washtenaw and asked them if it would be okay for us to do it, and they said yes. And ImageSoft went to Highland and asked them, and they said, that sounds like a great idea, because really the pitch was, the city of Ann Arbor is 5% of the area of Washtenaw County, but 35% of the population. So if Washtenaw County already invested in an ECM platform for however much they did, I didn't see it making much sense for the same taxpayers, for 1/3 of the tax base, to pay again for the same service. And that was basically what made the business case, I think, in the minds of Highland for us. So they said, it sounds like a great idea, we'll let that, we'll go and we'll focus on the services. So we ended up getting licensed to the enterprise, all the enterprise software that Washtenaw County already purchased, we could use right out of the gate. We just had to buy our own seats for the clients and then the services to get it integrated.
And that's a neighborly approach to it, because there's a lot of other vendors that are more interested in saying, wait a minute, I've got the opportunity to get them to buy the new and pay the maintenance. And so what ImageSoft and Highland were working with us on is just saying, hey, wait a minute, you bought the enterprise, now they pay half of our maintenance of the core things and then their own seats, and that's a real win. I think, and you'll see in our partnerships that there are things like this where we made the $500,000 investment to set the whole thing up, and then they just sort of show up and start using it. You know, that's
Yeah.
fine.
But it's the same people, so it should be fine, right?
It's the same citizens, yeah, it's the same citizens, and so it's fine. It's not a big deal. And I think that it goes back and forth. They were building a new data center. We just show up and pay rent. So it's those are the kinds of things that come along now and again, and it evens out. But we do keep track.
Now, do you have the web-based module where you pay a couple cents per constituent?
Young. Do we have the web-based module?
Public access?
Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
So
think that was
Young
purchased
Lung
at
is
the
our
county level.
on-base
Right.
guru. So we just wave our hands and talk about partnerships, but Young actually makes it work.
Can I, I'm sorry to interrupt,
Sure.
but I want to ask about that. Do you let any of your employees use a constituent access license? Because there was a little talk about, when we were discussing it with Mike Liveline, about I have an employee that's only going to use it to look something up, like a court record. Technically, they could use the constituent access licensing, and we wouldn't have to buy them their own seat.
They'd have to come in from outside.
We don't. Yeah, they'd have to come in from the outside, but they could do it.
And
Yeah.
then
For the public documents.
Yeah,
Web-based.
but that's a way around it, so you don't have to buy your employees
Yeah,
who
for
are
this-
doing only a seat.
We don't.
You good with that?
We don't. All knowledge, are we recording? Yes, we are. You aren't the first
Here, put your
counties who are
Dan.
both nimble and entrepreneurial.
cover that. Cover your mouth.
Wow.
Well, I mean, the truth is, 99% of our employees use workflow,
Yeah.
honestly. So we would have to have their own. But there's that 1% that works the front counter that all they're ever going to do is just look something up.
So they should just
And
look
so
at
if that were the case, those
And
5
that's
people
exactly
might
it.
be able to get in the other way.
But there is also what's known as a view-only license it's quite low cost as well. And it predates having this public access license. So a lot of folks that just had the occasional user went to that, and it's quite a bit lower.
Sorry.
That's-
Thank you
Please,
so
please,
much.
any other
That's good.
things? This is kind of just a PowerPoint show, so you better have a conversation.
Yeah, really talk.
How did you get past the identity, someone losing their identity, so is the county running the thing?
Is it
You
Active
get
Directory?
top billing, the city doesn't get top billing, or do the people in the trade?
At some level, it's a real infrastructure level collaboration that from our constituent and our board's perspective is, thank you guys for saving money, but we still maintain all of our kind of individual identities with things. I don't think we've lost.
So you've got
Much.
2 different Active Directory groups.
Yep.
Yep.
And your group logs in with your
Yes.
existing credentials
Yep.
and vice versa.
City / or WC /
Yep.
whatever it is.
So nothing was formed to create that as being the,
And they have, within the city, they're gonna have multiple different Active Directory groups as well. So it's not really any different than what they were doing before.
Yeah.
The shared platform.
Except the benefit is that Young can go on vacation now.
Yay.
Yay.
What's
Because we could back her up.
Yeah, Young
Right,
goes
not like me.
Young goes far away, so.
But that was one of the real benefits of sharing was that we could provide some relief for the single point of failures that we all have in this sector. The one-outs in our department.
Single points of success.
Single points of success.
Let's not get carried away.
Stand corrected.
But it is true. So we, like in our, I guess we can kind of either talk about this, but in ECM we had 3 people, somebody, Dave Wilson left, so now we're in with 2 who are focusing on ECM. You have 2, so that, we still within that have redundancy, but there's other areas in our data center, in our GIS and other places where we're sort of down to kind of 1 expert each. And that really, when you have 1 expert each, that's good, because if you only have 1 expert across the way,
It's a problem.
it's a lot more
No
problematic.
vacation.
No vacation, yeah, go to Hawaii, yeah, so.
High stress, it's all bad.
Do you guys have the documents in the same object database? But don't want to get too technical.
They are. We talked about a multi-tenanted implementation at first, but I think that was a little, it could have been more restrictive. I was hoping that, and I still think we can find, there's workflows that actually cross between the city and the county. So what we do is we just name our documents with a prefix for the city and a separate prefix for the county. And we haven't run into a common document yet, but we're going to have to. But eventually, I think that's going to happen.
But theoretically, they're all public
So far,
records,
so
so.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well,
So
some.
things that are public record.
Well, I don't know if they're all public record.
Not all, but the things that are public record, if they get city and county documents as a search result, it's not really a big deal.
Yeah, I haven't thought about that, because we really haven't, I think we've been filtering records. So if the treasurer, who's using your front outside? Is anybody using the
Building
outside?
inspection, right?
So that's filtered to a certain
the
type of
public-
dock type, I think.
Public
at this
access
point.
is building inspection and
And you can set
Yeah.
that
And
access
IPSC.
at the user level for the
Yep.
group.
So probably the user logging in remotely automatically is getting only able to view certain documents.
Right. Okay.
So the county merged data centers with us twice. The AATA decided that they needed a lot more help from us, and so both of us collectively. So we provide internet service now, web hosting. We manage their network for them at the city. Email, and we share a phone system now between the city and the AATA. And we do their wireless and the VPN, workstation management. We help them a lot. We're hoping that they can help us more, and they want to help us more. The big jump for us, besides the ECM, was we took the step into the personnel where we shared. So one of the things that Andy was talking about is we shared infrastructure. So it was all back-end stuff that we did. So our data center, our SAN, our backup environment, the network,
merit connection.
internet connection, all that stuff. We decided it made a lot more sense for us. We thought we'd get more mileage out of our relationship if we shared the leader too. So we took that jump, and 50% of the infrastructure manager the city paid for. And that person co-located at the city 2 days a week, 1 week, and 3 days the other. And then the other time they switched around. So that was an interesting experiment. I think the better solution would have been to put everybody together, but we couldn't quite get that hurdle to overcome.
Well, it seems like it also turns out that just that people, that's a very person-intensive role. Is you need that person to stay there, and because of things that were happening in the county, other issues, that person got reassigned to, elevated responsibilities, different responsibilities, and then left. So we, from a county perspective, in terms of us being the provider of that resource, we sort of shifted a couple times, and so that didn't work. It seems like the SAN is much more stable than the people that run the SAN.
Yes.
Maybe that's.
So we've pulled back now, and we have
You
separate.
at least get a 3-year lease.
So we tried it, and I think the conclusion that we came to is because politically the organizations were not willing to let everybody co-locate together. It's a labor issue where I have non-union staff, and Washtenaw County has all union staff at the worker level, and we were afraid, to be perfectly honest, that there'd be an issue if we merged them all together. And so the decision was made not to fight that fight. So.
And I think it really is one of those. It's back to who's your front end. So if we're all our IT people are sitting in a county building and available to county employees, they seem, even though if you went a block over and we're in a city building, it would somehow feel different to our customers of us being there. So again, we're sharing as much as we can reasonably share. And so we don't have some vision,
A shared vision. You can have a vision, but it's got to be a shared vision.
What was Phil's?
Patience.
Yeah, patience, and then what was his? What did he call his plan? He said something. It wasn't a strategic plan. It sounded something a little bit more sinister, but it was a longer range. But we have none of that. We're just sort of doing the best we can together, and then every time there's an opportunity, we talk.
Go on. So.
Yeah.
Do your two IT managers frequently convene?
We do all the time. Because of the transition that we've had in other roles, we haven't. But on a staff level, our GIS people meet a lot. Our ECM people are in touch pretty much constantly about things because we share the infrastructure. So if something's slowing down, it's sort of, hey, it's slowing down. Did you do anything? Yeah, I did something. Let's take that out. So there's a lot of that collaboration. But what we want to talk about here is after the kind of the big bang, you're going to share data centers. We sort of management almost backed off into the background for a little while and said, okay, you people who run desktop support get together and talk about desktop opportunities. You people who run storage area network get together and talk about what you need in storage area network. ECM, GIS, get together in groups and come up with a business case for what you might do. And it actually turned out that management backing out of the scene was a better idea than trying to say you should do this and you should do this, because at a detail level we don't know where those opportunities are. So out of that came business cases for a shared GIS. So now we have a shared GIS infrastructure. Esri is not quite as cooperative as OnBase in terms of letting us share licenses. So the city owns their I mean, we're having a talk with them later in the week about that, but we basically have the same kit in our data center, but we each buy the enterprise license, so that doesn't make any sense to us. What we were able to buy together was the GeoCortex online public access mapping. So we do share that. So we have a combined, basically a combined application and public presentation layer, but then we have separate GIS, geodatabases in the back end.
So what the business case is, what they did is they laid out what the best collaboration strategy was going to be for these different verticals. So on storage, we looked at it and said, well, the city's got a SAN, the county has a SAN, ours was an iSCSI, they had a EMC, Clarion. Should we move all of our stuff to the Clarion? So we made those kinds of decisions. You know, we're running Extreme Networking, county's running Nortel at the time. They decided to go a different way than Extreme. But we made all those decisions together, and we've learned to live with those. That's what the business case provided us, the way to document that, so that when people look back at it, well, why didn't you share this? Well, we looked at this and decided the cost was too much at the time.
Right.
Like one of the big things that I wanted to do was share Active Directory. Let's just build a common root. But that was...
Yeah, I was going to say, did you have a conversation with did you have this conversation with Microsoft? Exchange.
No, we have separate exchange. Microsoft knows exactly what we're doing, but again, Dan just sort of brought up to the same level of enterprise agreement that we're on, so that we can then start putting the hooks together.
We get a federated Active Directory world going. We can accomplish what we wanted to accomplish without actually going through the pain of rewriting everything, I think.
Yeah.
But it was, so we can go on. So the basic idea of the business case was to set direction in these different silos or verticals in the infrastructure, and that's where we decided to focus right away, was the infrastructure.
Yeah.
As far as our...
Well, because you're a full-service city, Jan is a bus service, and we're county government.
And the politicians don't care about infrastructure.
Collaboration.
And the politicians really didn't care about infrastructure because it was back office.
We could get away with it.
we could get away with it, exactly.
Next sign.
And so, through this process, one of the things we did realize too is people didn't know what we were doing exactly. So even though we had the business cases, they didn't really understand what we were doing, and we were afraid that, well, so Dave Bean was the CIO, and then it was Dale, and then it was James, and now it's Andy. I've been there for 7 years, but
Didn't used to be that way.
didn't used to be.
You watched, I could name all the IT directors from the city that came through before you showed up. So.
Right. So I mean, so there is a lot of churn in our sector. So what we decided, one of the things we decided was, it's important for us to, although it works successfully because of the relationship that we have, our professional and personal relationship. If we're both not there, we need to have something that spells out what each organization is doing for the other one. So that's what led us down the road of formalizing, after the fact, really, all the things that we've done together. So we put together.
It really was kind of an after the fact thing, because some of the slamming together and I talk about it more of like, you know, kind of moving. We shacked up, and I brought my TV. You know, we brought our ECM. We brought the flat screen. We had our couches, and then we went through the thing of saying, which ones do we need to keep? Well, you got a nicer TV. We'll keep your TV, but it was sort of on that. It was, some of those were email exchanges, some of them were documented in contracts, but now we've got a formal master services agreement, the interagency agreement for collaborative technology services that we're all a party to, and then each of these individual collaborations are spelled out in what's called a schedule, but it's basically a statement of work that says, for SAN, Washtenaw County is the owner of the SAN. We will be the provider of SAN services to the city. The city will pay this much, use this much SAN. Here's the point of contact, here's the period of the agreement, all those things, we sign those. So, but the overarching agreement is the one that sort of sets forth the terms and conditions of our relationship. And then we have now 9 of these sub-agreements on various different things.
With some more coming. So one of the things that we did in these different schedules is they all have different termination dates. So something like a SAN is a big financial investment for a county. It'd be unfair for me to commit to half of their storage in year 1 and then say year 2 I'm out, and leave them on the hook paying. So we have long
We'd
termination
be advertising
agreements.
our cloud services. we've got extra SAN. Come put your
Tennessee
name.
County would jump in.
All right.
But we have longer tail. So every one of these agreements has an exit plan, basically. Every one of these schedules talks about how we get out of this, so that everybody still has they remain financially whole through the process. That was a big concern that I thought we could get caught up in if we didn't address it sooner. And so one of the things, so Andy alluded to this agreement that we have. So I would guess back in 2005 when I first started for the city, one of the first things that David Bean got me involved in was more of some of this cross-boundary collaboration that happens at the state level. And one of the first conversations I had or witnessed at that group was Bob Dadow. I don't know if you know who Bob is. Bob is the Deputy County Administrator for Oakland County. Was talking about essentially a shared services agreement that they were going to put together to the local units. And to me, when I was listening to it as a local unit, it didn't seem like I really wanted to participate in it because of the way it was sort of sounding to me. That's no offense to anybody from Oakland County, but it was just the way it was presented to me, I think, turned me and a lot of other people that were interested maybe off. So just because of the language that was used, not the intent, it was more the language that, so it was more like this customer, and we're the vendor, and we control, and we charge, and if you don't pay, we throw it against your tax, all kinds of ways to, so those things did not seem like a partnership to me. So as we put together this interagency agreement, we took out words like vendor and customer and replaced it with participant. So anybody that signs in doesn't commit to doing anything but enabling them to participate in the sharing if they want. And that's what the high-level agreement covers. So basically, it has all our government immunity stuff in it so that we don't sue each other. We say we all have insurance and that kind of stuff is in there. And then we introduced terms like subscriber and provider. So in the case of the SAN, Washtenaw County is a provider. They offer to provide that service to all participants, not just the city. So AATA is also a participant on the SAN. Anybody else in our agreement could be a participant on the SAN. When you participate, you're considered a subscriber. And in the schedule that's developed, there's certain rights that a subscriber has. And there's also rights that a provider has. And it gets a little bit sketchier in some of the things where we actually are closer collaborators, like with the ECM platform, where as part of that, as part of being a subscriber, we say we're going to provide services to you, backup services. So basically, I guess the message is we decided we're going to architect it and take what I thought were more of the sharper words out and just make it more friendly sounding, but enabling us to provide the protection that we all need as local governments in our schedules when we are the providers. So we develop the schedule as providers, and then people could sign up to be a subscriber or not. And that's basically how we've done it. I don't know, does that make sense to you guys?
Do you charge back? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Do you charge back to the subscribers based upon licenses used, or is it based upon percentage of constituents? What was your
on SAN, it's based on percentage of expected use. Same with backup. Let's see. So for on-base, it really is. We share the enterprise stuff, the things that we both use together. We cut it right down the middle and split it out. And it's sort of easy because we're roughly a similar sized organization. So down the middle is easy. Yeah. We had other situations where AATA is coming in and saying we want a sliver of the SAN. Mm-hmm. And so it's interesting because if you say, here's the SAN and we're splitting it down the middle, AATA wants to buy a sliver. Are they going to buy sort of a sliver that looks like that sliver, or are they going to buy a sliver that's the same size that looks like that, and that they buy a little bit from each of us? So we just talk through those things each time. I think with the SAN we decided to let's do that. You're not selling off you're not subcontracting your half. We're selling it together. Mm-hmm.
So we just basically try to treat things as fair as possible. Panic buttons is something else we did. We did a network-based panic button system called Lynx. It works really good. I don't know if anybody has panic button issues, but they are very troublesome. Yes?
Have you guys gone out and tried to get some of the other communities in your county to buy into this, or what's the deal?
Well, so here's the so I I was talking to our help desk yesterday, and we spend a lot of time, we support a lot of different communities. I said at the beginning, we got 20 websites, 20 email, we've got a lot going on. And I went, besides those 20, so we do full service IT for the city of Ypsilanti, and they also have an on-base component that we lease to them. The city of Ypsilanti agreement is a separate contract. That contract's up in the fall of this year. So what I'm talking to them about is join the interagency agreement and then set up a schedule. So I'm trying to get all of these other collaborations that we have and bring them under the same umbrella so that we can start doing it.
And so are you guys gonna split if there's an income?
Depends on who's providing the service. So he's a provider.
So he's the provider and you're not, so he would automatically just
Yeah.
get whatever.
Yeah, we're doing soup to nuts IT service. We run their
Right.
network. We all those things for them. So our agreement with them is basically a staffing agreement, and then they buy all the equipment and software that above and beyond what's in the base that we provide.
Have you had any of the townships try to come on board?
We have the Dexter Area Fire Department who's on board. We had Pittsfield Township who was on and then off. I mean, some of it depends upon how they look at IT services. Sometimes they like to have, some guy or some gal on site that they can say, hey, go do this.
Mm-hmm.
And others look at it more broadly and say, wow, if I contract roughly the same amount of money, so City of Ypsilanti pays us $100,000 a year, that would be kind of an employee. For an employee, you're going to get a skill set. When you work with us, you get skill sets. And you get redundancy, and you get all these other things that are included in that you wouldn't get. So some people see that and say, boy, I get more with that. City of Chelsea wants to have somebody because City of Chelsea, and so Dan contracts with the City of Chelsea, but theirs is more, I want somebody on site. And while they're not doing IT stuff, I want them doing other things because we're paying them time.
But we're shifting that to a service model, like you were, skill set. So they're going to get, their next iteration is going to be they're going to become part of it, they're going to become a participant on the agreement, and we'll be the providers. So we have to talk about exactly how that one might turn out, because right now, Washtenaw County provides some services to Chelsea's police department. And we're supporting
Historically,
everybody
because
else.
they were right next door to one of our district court buildings.
Yeah, but now they moved the police department next to City Hall, so they want to change the deal. So
And now we ran fiber all the way out to Chelsea. We ran fiber all the way to Chelsea, and they want to move the courthouse from Chelsea. So we have fiber kind of dangling out there.
so it's this Washington issue. So
it's all interesting.
it is very
How much
interesting.
time do we have, by the
Just
way?
like about 10 minutes.
Okay, we're good.
So. But so anyway, it's by putting the structure in place, it gets people involved, and it takes a lot of the fear people have about getting into a relationship like this away, I think, because they have control. That's one of the things you just need to leave is the control.
And my hope would be we renegotiate with the city of Ypsilanti. That very same agreement for support would be the model that City of Ann Arbor could use for
Chelsea.
City of Chelsea,
Yeah.
anybody else. So and that's what I consider it is the you're on our network support model, which means we're going to run your desktop, we're going to manage your updates, because you're plugged into our wire. We need to know what you got, and you can't just be buying things and sticking them in there. So that's the kind of the control side of it. But the other side of it is you get a stable computer platform. So we have Dexter Township, one more township, who isn't on our wire, who we're trying out a time and materials arrangement where they can just for an hourly rate call us, and we'll come out and look at what's going on their staff of 4 and try and help them out. We don't manage it. We don't. We're just sort of consultants.
And an interesting development too is the city was working. So the fire engines in the city they actually had paper map books. There was like a co-pilot that would open a map book and navigate the truck driver to get where he had to go. We encouraged them to replace that with a PC, with a computer connected to their computer-aided dispatch, so it would pop the address up. Their concern was they didn't want to type in the address themselves, because if they mistype the address, show up at the wrong place, it's all bad. So we figured out a system that would allow, from our CAD system, to get that information onto a system that would show them how to get the best route, and then take all the information that happens during the course of the fire and move it into the report management system. We did that for the city. There's like 20 other fire departments in the county. So they're starting to look at this, and they want to do it too, and they're starting to come to, they're seeing the benefit to it, so IPSI's doing it now. So
Dexter Area Fire, who's on our network, we're actually having a conversation on Friday about switching the hosting of their firehouse software to the city, because county government has no business running firehouse software. We don't put out fires.
So baby steps, but
It's
it's
sort of like
working.
figuring out, it's nice, it could really pay dividends in the longer run where we've got expertise of a county, a city, and a bus system, because we could actually, all we need
Provide
is
a
a
lot
road
of
commission, and
services.
we've got like most of government covered,
Right.
so. So we're working, so in our future, specifically on ECM, we are right now in the process of rolling out e-warrants to other police agencies. We've got it working within our network between Washtenaw County Sheriff and the Prosecutor's Office. We're now, just met yesterday with the Prosecuting Attorney. We're going to work with City of Ann Arbor. We've got a shared solution with City of Ypsilanti. But other than that, we're really looking at trying to attract more people in. And it's not really attract more people in, it's what we were talking about is people we're already participating with, kind of swing them into this model as those contracts come due.
So we talked about the regional fire offering from our side, and I think it's really sort of like Andy said, between the three of us, we have a lot of core government services covered. We can become a cloud provider. Yeah, maybe we don't have to throw up our own front end like they did out in Oakland County. Maybe we could use their front end to make some of these services available to other local units too.
And right now, the income we're getting is not, we've got a staff of about 20 to 22 people on our IT staff. You've got a similar size, and we're the revenue we're pulling in is around $270,000. Most of that's licensed, some of that is staff. So it's enabled us to hire one more person within our organization. So it's not a big thing. The incredible next step that we haven't taken would be to say for GIS is we're going to either, between city and county, maybe we won't merge our services. We might set up sort of some other entity that provides regional GIS services to all the communities. And that would be, that's one thought of how it would happen, is that it may happen within one of our organizations, or it makes sense to have it somewhere else. I don't know. But what we're doing now is, it's sort of like if we go back to, I don't know if the TV, if we got the flat screen TV, is we each have clickers. So it's not like we turn to somebody and say, hey, change the channel. It's like everybody's got, we share the infrastructure, but we each have our own staff that works on things. And it works very well, and there really isn't any reason to change that. But if you really wanted to go to the next level, it really would be taking Young and Jason and Jeff and then trying to find a way that we can serve both sides out of the same office. And maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. We don't have to do that.
Well, one of the things that was announced, I think, at that Mackinac policy meeting was the virtual city concept. I don't know if you guys caught wind of that. I don't about it, but so that is an idea that's been floated out by, I think, the budget department, basically to create an agency, have two cities create an authority to use much the same way that we use our inter-office agreement or interagency agreement. But it'd be it would be an authority without anybody really having any control. It'd just be a vehicle that we could subscribe and provide through.
Yeah, and the clear business model for that isn't sitting out there and knocking us over the head saying you've got to really do this, because that would be just a lot to try and figure out. I'm a county employee. I've worked at the county for now 9 years. Going to this other sort of non-county entity that may then fold up a little bit.
I think it's
faster
more
than
that you would just use
there
this
would be, There would be
vehicle.
fear of that.
Yeah, I think it's more to just use that as a vehicle to provide services so that people don't have to join this interagency agreement. They could sign on as a member of that virtual city authority, and then we could subscribe or provide through that.
Yeah.
I think it's what the state's trying to do. So we're
it's
all
not-
thinking sort of the same thing. We just got a little further locally because we had the will to get it done.
Yeah.
I have a question. Your Register of Deeds uses Tyler, I
Yes.
believe, because I went down there to visit that.
Yeah.
I'm curious, since you have a partnership now and what you're doing, do they go through you before they make a decision like that on a software that they're going to purchase? Because Tyler specifically does not integrate with OnBase.
Yeah.
That's not true.
That's not true?
That's really not true.
I was just in a meeting with them 2 weeks ago and they told me they do not integrate.
Well, they sell a module for document management.
For OnBase?
No.
No,
They sell their own.
No, no.
They
that's
would
what I'm
rather
saying.
sell
They don't
that.
integrate with OnBase.
So I think it's a yes.
No, they would rather sell you their module to manage your documents than to say that there's an integration with OnBase.
So they do integrate with OnBase.
We use Application Enabler to integrate to Tyler.
There's no API.
Yeah. So you're
So is
just,
your register of deeds using?
our Register of Deeds, let me give the right, we've got a great partnership with our Register of Deeds office. They're elected officials. They tend to make a lot of their own technology decisions, sort of am I getting it?
Yeah,
Semi,
same thing.
semi-independently. We do need to collaborate because it all ends up plugging back into our system. And so we do try to be involved in those conversations, but a lot of times they're off on their own business cycles and having their own contacts and making their own discoveries about what might work. County government in Michigan is just a weird animal where there are just all kinds of power centers, and there's not, I think in Oakland where they have an executive that it's a little clearer. In our county we've got 11 members of a board, and from them they pick one person, and then we've got a county administrator who's appointed by the board. I can go on and on about all the different people who are elected, and Register D is one of them. So really that's just a relationship thing that we need to.
I think that the more that Andy and I get up and talk about this, the more people will hear about it. And then they start thinking, well, maybe I should check with IT, maybe there's something out there. And things like the virtual city starts to speak to the politicians too, so they come back to their organization. Do we have anything like this? Oh yeah, by the way, if you work with.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of, Andy's got a good relationship with all his elected officials too. So it's just a matter of finding the right time to have the conversation about, hey, check with us and maybe you'll find something.
Maybe we're in the right place. Yeah, because we have a lot of things that we've developed in-house for our elected officials and others. We've got a great portfolio of basically open source Java-based applications that do our timesheets, our open enrollment, all these other things. For years, and it's been a real challenge because over the years it's like I've got an open source web content management system. We've got all these things that are built on a Java platform, and we would go around and say, hey, we've got this stuff. Did anybody use it? And they're like, turn to, turn anywhere else besides us. And part of it is because we're not really set up to be a business, and that, this works because we're neighbors. We've got the relationship and we've got the proximity. Is that proximity? How I did the last one.
Yep.
And the neighbors. We talked about the neighbors.
So there's a number of key points to take away is that, if you start small with quick wins that focus on developing the relationships, as those easy successes, the real value there is people get to know one another and work with them. And that could lead to other successes. I think you need to be a good storyteller. We're working on that.
So the business case, I think we'll go for the business case and the planning to keep score as put those right together with the win-win in the middle. But it really is important to be able to tell the story, but then also to have the documents. I remember our former IT manager James McFarland was walking into a board meeting before one of these agreements was going before the board, and one of our board members really is sort of skeptical about the whole thing, and James leans over and says, we're doing this because I don't trust him either. And it was sort of he got a kind
never heard that before.
You didn't hear that story before, but it was if you don't document it, you don't have anything. It really is based on trust, which is great because any document really works because you have trust. But if you don't have it documented, you can't sort of show it to other people and say, I know this because, rather than trust me, Dan's a good guy, he would never back up, whatever it was. So it's good to document it. I thought that was really funny.
Yep. That was pretty good. In a win-win, it's important there that nobody feels like a loser in whatever's being done is really important. If you feel like you're losing, don't get into the relationship because it's not going to be successful, I think.
Yeah.
So relationships take time. We said that before, and so you have to be of the same mind and have the same sort of vision, be comfortable working together.
Patience.
Yes. Patience.
As somebody said, in government, it's more important to be moving the right direction and measure yourself by the compass and not the speedometer. Is that if you're going the right direction, things will, and you have the right idea, things will sort of eventually come. There's times to pull out and say, wait a minute, we got to make progress and we got to get this done now. But there's to me, as long as, and we were doing this with e-warrants, is, okay, the sheriff is coming down and they're scanning all their stuff and it is going in. That's good. They're playing. It's, we could pull our hair out and say, why are they driving down here with all these things that they could just upload? But they'll figure it out because they're going in the right direction, and they eventually have.
So being close together helped us personally work this out. The fact that we had fiber and things were fast, that was a big sell for us.
Yeah. Fiber is the big, I think that's the big thing that made it all happen, and that's the, you know, we're talking to Livingston about, they're talking about pulling fiber down through Washtenaw County and connecting it to Merritt and back up. We're working with the state of Michigan on other fiber connectivity, so I think that really is the ability, so that, you know, if you're our next door neighbor in Jackson, but we don't have, you know, a fast connection between each other, we're gonna, our level of collaboration is going to be kind of, we did this and these are the modules we bought and you ought to buy the same thing. There's not really a reasonable way for us to host it. So,
I guess last, again, it's important to have an exit plan because we're not going to be here forever. People need to understand how to get out of whatever's in place.
gets a little more complex as the longer we're in it, but we still really could pull apart within the 18-month window that we've set up to say if you had to.
You know, we've had a chance to actually prove this out in real time. We had one of our business units, dispatch, decided that they were going to consolidate the county's dispatch with the city's dispatch. And because of the investment that we made in common infrastructure and understanding each other, that all went off without a hitch as far as technology went. It became a completely people problem, a people problem, not a technology problem.
And that does the exit plan, you know, like in this day and age when cities just sort of go bankrupt because they've invested in Nigeria and some how to make money and whatever stuff. So what if Ann Arbor calls you up one day and says, "Geez, you know, all of our money we had, we invested over, we didn't really make any money."
Rare coins in Toledo.
Yeah, you know, sort of what. Does any one part of the total plan, does it affect the fact that if you have one drop out, I mean, does that then eliminate all the rest in the plan?
No, I don't think there. So you're saying like if we were to, if he was to say I'm canceling out of one part of it because I can't afford this anymore and I need to save the $100,000 that we're sharing on something and I just need to save that and I'm out. The agreement is they sort of co-term with our maintenance agreement, so it would be, you know, the life cycle of one of these things that we buy together would be something that we would have to.
I would think that if we came in and said we couldn't pay, that they would sue us and said, you agreed that you would pay, that you give us 18 months.
You have to pay until
notice.
this period of time.
Yeah, there's an 18 months notice. You can give me termination, but it's effective 18 months from now.
So maybe the emergency manager would have to pay.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think that's our story.
Yeah. Thanks for all your questions. It's been interesting.
Sorry, I didn't wait to the end. I apologize.
What's that? No, it's fine. I'm glad. So any other questions near the end here?
Just have a curious
Sure.
question. It's unrelated to imaging, but what are you using for the open source timesheet program?
It's
You're not the only one. I'm curious.
it's a Java-based. We developed it in-house. So
Okay.
it actually we could call it interoperable because it's got all of our employees, and you just enter your time, and then what it does is it spits it out into a CSV file that then can be uploaded to our finance system. So in that way, it is pretty portable. It's tied into our JDE system in terms of picking who's who, but it's
What do you use for financial program?
JD Edwards, so Enterprise One, and we just decided last week that we're going to stick with it because it doesn't suck bad enough to change. And I think that's what with you can name all these big systems, and some people say you should only do those once in a career, and I think probably 6 out of the 8 people in the room have done it once. They did it I think it was 2000. So they're not, even though it's not the best system, it's not a good time to change. So yeah, if you're interested in learning more about the, you know, kind of what we have, we haven't packaged it up in an open source model, and I think that's the thing of having a good vendor relationship is that often when you're trying to buy something, you want to have the shared accountability model. You want to have somebody you can choke when it's not working. In an open source, you're trying to choke the community.
Right.
It's a little bit harder. So, thanks everybody.